business, but it is a slightly different business you may be doing. That is called as your vertical investment. So, say for example, here it is, one of the companies which want to go for see this particular integration, which is slightly different. It can be of two ways. It can be a forward integration, or it can be backward integration. Backward integration is one when a particular company is acquiring the function of a supplier who has been supplying raw material to them. Forward integration is one where the company is acquiring the function of a company which was helping it in distribution and logistics. So you are a company, say for example, doing production of, let us say, chocolates. Now, when you are doing production of chocolates and confectionery, any biscuits, chocolates, and all, you are dependent on suppliers of sugar and wheat flour and all these things, the ingredients which go in there. Now, when you are basically dependent on these suppliers, and then you are doing processing of chocolates or confectionery items, then you have distributors whom you will look for, and these distributors will take your confectionery items across the world. Now, when you are trying to acquire a function which was being done by a supplier, that means instead of depending on a supplier for acquisition of sugar and these raw material, you yourself set up that particular business. So that will be called as your backward integration. Similarly, in case of searching for a distributor or anybody else, you yourself enter into the function of doing distribution also. That will be called as your forward integration. So what happens here, you are slightly differentiating your business, which is established in a foreign country, and you integrate either backward or you integrate either forward. So here, if you have example, materials which are used for car manufacturing is steel. So you can do backward integration and invest in a steel manufacturing company, which can be there, iron and steel manufacturing company. So that way your integration can be vertical, where you are not opening and you're not opening the same business altogether, but you are slightly doing a business which is slightly different from your current one by undertaking any type of an integration. It can be backward integration, where you are acquiring the function of a supplier, or it can be a forward integration where you are acquiring the function of a distributor and then doing their businesses as such. So vertical integration, that is called. You see, the horizontal means the sleeping line, and then you have same business. Vertical is a standing line where you go up or down. So when you go standing line, then you will have a upward integration, which is forward. And then when you come down, it will be a backward integration, which is downward. So you go back and then do the businesses which your suppliers have been doing. That way it is vertical. Then you have conglomerate integration, where you are investing in a business which is unrelated to your existing business. In no way it is related to your existing business, and you enter into doing that particular business as such. So companies basically, do diversify their businesses and then do things which they have not done at all earlier. Just because they want expansion, they will diversify into a completely new business which can be there. For example, there can be an entertainment company which is actually into production of music and telecast of videos or programs or movies and all. And if that company decides to enter into production of soaps, for example, then soaps are an FMCG product and an entertainment is a service industry. So therefore, you are completely entering into a new industry which is there, which is called as your conglomerate diversification, where FDI comes in, because that particular company is making investment in an altogether new business which can be there. So that way also your diversifications can happen, which can be there. So you have these kinds of FDIs which can flow. You can have FDI which can be horizontal, vertical, and then it can be conglomerate. Now, when these set of investments are there, how do these come into India? So how do these investors invest this money into India, or what are the routes through which the FDI comes into India? So let us see the routes which are there. There are two routes through which the FDI can come into India. One is called as an automatic route and one is called as a government route. In an automatic route, the investor need not have to take any permission from the government of that particular country or any authority in that particular country. The moment you choose a sector, that particular sector itself will be open for investment. For example, currently, the Indian government has opened a retail sector with 100% fully automatic route. That means if any foreign company wants to come and set up their your investment in retail, say for example, single brand retail or multiple brand retail, then they can come and invest money without taking anybody's approval. So no authorities, no government, no department's approval is necessary. That investor can directly come and start investing in the company. That will be called as an automatic route, which will be there. No doubt, all these investments are monitored under FEMA, but prior permission is not required. It's not that these investments are not monitored. Under FEMA Act, you have all these investments which get monitored, but there's no need of any prior permissions which are required in case you choose a sector where the government has already permitted automatic 100% FDI. Say, for example, in retail, as I was telling, you have, in India, you have so many foreign stores like Nike store is there, Puma store is there, Adidas store is there, and Shopper Stop is there. These are no, so many of them are actually a single brand store where they're selling one brand, or they are multiple brand stores where they are selling different types of brands in their store. So in case you are investing in a retail sector, then there is no need of a prior government approval, which is there, which is called as an automatic route, because the sector itself has been approved by the government for all types of investments which can be made. That is the first one. Second type of a route is called as a government route, where without the permission of the government, you cannot make investment in that particular sector. Say, for example, banking and insurance. Now, earlier, the FDI limit in insurance industry was 29%, 27%. Later, government has gone up to increase it to above 40%. So therefore, whoever is the foreign company who wants to invest, they have to take permission from the government to the extent of the investment that is happening. This is called as a government route. Then you can just see the list of the companies where, there is no permission of the government to invest at all. So the industries are not allowed to opt for FDI. They are these industries. So you have automatic energy generation. Sorry, atomic energy. You have there's no FDI in atomic energy. Similarly, gambling, betting businesses, lotteries, which are there, chit funds, which are there, investment companies, which are there, which are all belonging to non-banking finance companies under Companies Act, where the core business is buying and selling. In that also nobody can invest. Agricultural or plantation companies which are there, like certain exceptions are there, not purely agriculture and plantation. For example, fisheries and tea plantation and all, it is permitted, but pure type of agricultural activities like growing crops, that is your wheat, rice, and staples which are there, in that it is not permitted. Then except for some of the township projects which can be there, but for any other project also in housing and real estate also it is not permitted. Otherwise, what will happen? These foreign people will come and start buying land here in India, and they will start they will start gaining so they will start it'll be like colonialization, like how what happened during British rule. So housing and real estate is also not being permitted. Then you have cigars, cigarettes, and any tobacco industry is also not being permitted. Sorry, this is not there, this is deleted. We don't have that. So cigars, cigarettes, and any other tobacco industry is not being permitted. So these type of industries where you have which are basically harming, if foreign investment comes, it may result in danger to the Indian economy. So they do not permit foreign investment in these. Or if it comes, it may lead to colonialization of the country as such, or it may not be in the interest of the citizens of the country, or it may be a threat to the nation's security, like energy. So therefore, you don't have a FDI which is being permitted in all these industries. Except for these, any other industry, they can adopt, depending upon whether the industry is automatic approval or government approval, they need to choose and then invest in that particular industry if it is automatic or government route. This is FDI. So you have types of FDI, which we discussed: vertical, horizontal, conglomerate, and routes through which FDI can come into India. Then you have institutional investment, FII, foreign institutional investments, where you have outside companies which are investing in the Indian financial market through purchase of financial assets. So financial assets are bonds, debentures, securities, which are there, mutual funds, pension funds, insurance, bonds. All these are all financial assets where you're not investing in a physical asset, but in a financial asset. That is your foreign company investing in Indian financial markets, which are there. The Indian financial markets, depending upon what are you purchasing, you can have a different regulator altogether there. So if you're purchasing shares and bonds and debentures of a company, you have SEBI. In case you are purchasing bonds of a banking company, then you have, RBI, which regulates that. So like that, you have got different regulators depending upon where is the financial institutional investor investing in that particular country. So you have the regulations there. If you see, all foreign people, the investors, they're all allowed to invest in India through your primary and secondary capital markets. So through stock exchanges, they are allowed to invest in India, because how will you buy shares, bonds, debentures in a company? It is only through the stock market. So they are all, these stock markets are open for a foreign investment. They have to purchase shares and debentures on the stock market. In India, we have NSE, BSE, and then these foreign investors come and buy the shares and debentures there. But at the same time, they cannot have a shareholding which is more than 24%. So maximum shareholding that can come in the form of FII is only to the extent of 24% of the paid up capital of the company. So a particular company cannot have all shares which are being bought by a foreign company. Even they should also have Indian investors who must have invested in that particular company. So you cannot receive your 100% paid up capital through foreign investment. So the paid up capital is only raised to the extent of 24% in very exceptional cases. That is, if there are big corporate houses and all which have approved projects to run, and they have to raise foreign money, then in such exceptional cases, only then you can have, board approval, which can be done, and you pass a special resolution, and slightly it can be increased beyond 24%. Otherwise, it is only 24% of foreign portfolio investment that can come into India through purchase of shares, bonds, debentures, mutual funds, pension funds, which are there. Then you have this particular portfolio. When you say portfolio, what does this portfolio comprise of? So your portfolio can be, because the word says foreign institutional investment and then foreign portfolio investment. These are the two things which are being used there. So portfolio is nothing but a group of financial assets. So instead of investing only in shares, what if I want to diversify my risk as a foreign investor, and I want to invest not only in shares of a company, but also diversify the risk and invest also in the form of debt and debentures, or in the form of mutual funds, or in the form of bonds of a company, or I want to go ahead and invest in any other way where my risk is diversified, because any foreign investor may want to diversify the risk. So then instead of investing in any one type of foreign investment, you go for a portfolio of investment. So that way, portfolio is nothing but a group of financial asset which can be there. And maybe next year when you have subjects like security analysis, portfolio management and all, there you would have more in detail about how do they go about selecting portfolio, how is portfolio evaluated, what are the risks and returns which are associated with the portfolio. Those things you would learn. Here to remember that to diversify the risk and to maximize the returns which can be generated on any investment, an investor can choose from a group of investment assets. So he need not have to invest only in one asset, but he can choose from a group of assets which can be there, which you call as a portfolio. So portfolio is nothing but group of assets where you can transact in equity, you can transact in bonds, shares, debentures, banknotes of a company, mutual funds, pension funds, insurance schemes, treasury bills, which are nothing but government bills of exchange, trusts which are running, real estate investments, ETFs, funds which are traded on stock exchanges. All these things are nothing but your portfolio. So you can go ahead and invest in these portfolios. And you can also invest in the form of a derivative. Say, for example, in real estate, you are not permitted to invest, right? But you're interested in the real estate market. So you can invest in a commodity derivative which derives its value from your real estate assets. So you are not investing in real estate per se. That means you don't become owner of a land or a building or a house or a complex here, but you're investing in commodity derivatives where the derivative is a financial instrument. And the derivative word comes because it derives its value from an underlying asset. So when you say commodity derivatives, which are real estate, commodity derivatives, or maybe gold derivatives, then the derivative is deriving its value. The asset is deriving its value from an underlying asset, and the underlying asset can be anything. It can be land, it can be plant, it can be crop, it can be gold, it can be any other metal. So the underlying asset is that, and the value of your financial asset, which you call as commodity derivative, drives its value from the underlying asset which can be there. So you don't have a choice to invest in those assets. Hence, you invest in a derivative which is deriving its value from that particular underlying asset. So derivatives are also a part of your portfolio investment which can be there. So you have investments which you make in the financial assets. It need not be any one financial asset in which you are investing. It can be group of financial assets which you call as a portfolio. So that way also you can make your investment. I hope this part of forms of foreign investment is clear. So when you say forms of foreign investment, you have direct and indirect, and then you have got FDI, FII, and FP. FDI, you've got types of FDI and the routes for FDI. FII, you talk about securities, financial assets in which you can invest. And FPI, an extension of financial assets, but it is in the form of a group. You're not an individual financial asset, but a group of financial assets so that risk can be diversified and return can be maximized. These are the various ways in which a foreign investor can invest in another country's company, which will be there. Then you have now, when you talk about these investments which are happening, you talk about, the global monetary systems which are there. Different countries of the world have been following different systems of their managing money. So now when you talk about how should this money be managed, because all these investments are coming and the country has to manage, how do countries of the world manage their investment? They manage through something called as the monetary system. So when you say talk about globalization, there should also be a global monetary system so that whatever are the different countries of the world, they have a proper monitoring which is being done, which is in the form of where foreign business, that is international trade, happens in a very smooth manner. So you talk about your foreign global monetary system there. So global monetary system is nothing but rules, regulations, and a system which is governing movement of money between the countries of the world. So prior to World War One, the global monetary system was basically based upon what kind of international exchanges used to happen. Then once the world witnessed the Bretton Woods conference, the result of the Bretton Woods conference was the twin institutions were born from the Bretton Woods. So you have International Monetary Fund and IMF. So these were the two international institutions which were born after the Bretton Woods conference, which was held in 1944. And during that conference, not only were these two born, but at the same time, the Bretton Woods also spoke about implementing a fixed exchange rate system. Whereby the currency system of the world become less standard when compared to the gold standards which were there earlier. Yesterday we were talking about gold standards, where we said the value of the currency is derived from the amount of gold that goes into making the coin. So that particular monetary system had lot of flaws to it, because of which under Bretton Woods they said that instead of following the gold standard, let the global monetary system function based upon something called as an exchange exchange rate. So exchange rate mechanism came into picture, and gold standard was no more there after the Bretton Woods Commission, which came into picture. Now, during this Bretton Woods conference, where they speak about a fixed exchange rate construction and development, where people wanted to have a name where they could represent all the countries of the world having to look for a bank. Then they called it as a World Bank instead of calling it as an International Bank for Reconstruction and Development. So World Bank name was given later, but when it was born, the name given was IBRD. So here now these twins, that is IMF and IBRD, which were born after the Bretton Woods conference was being held. The first Bretton Woods system that spoke about a fixed exchange rate, their first thing that they spoke about was a monetary policy conduct. That means how should the world have a monetary policy being framed. So they spoke about a full responsibility being given to International Monetary Fund, IMF, so that IMF will draft the international monetary policies. Let IMF be given control over drafting of the international monetary policies which are there. So whatever exchange rates, because we are talking about fixed exchange rate. So exchange rates which are being fixed by IMF, these exchange rates were being allowed to fluctuate a little, that is only to the extent of plus or minus 1. But whatever are the values which are being determined by IMF, those values only should prevail for the currency exchange rates which are there. So it is not like today where we talk about the market demand and supply, and we say that $1 is equal to 61.8 rupees or 81.67 rupees and all. We don't say that today. Today we say that, but earlier IMF would tell that $1 is equal to these many rupees, and then the rupees were allowed to fluctuate plus or minus 1. So the rate of system that was followed at that point of time, 1944, we are talking about, where the world had just recovered after the Second World War, where IMF had taken the lead to draft an international monetary policy, follow a fixed exchange rate systems for the currencies of the world. And when you determine the exchange rate between the currencies, they were allowed to fluctuate one plus or minus 1%. That is first thing that they had. Second thing that they had was related to exchange-based currency. Exchange-based currency is one, earlier when we followed the gold standard, the currencies were allowed to convert themselves fully into gold. But after the Bretton Woods standard was being followed, the currencies were not allowed to convert themselves into completely gold, but they were allowed to convert themselves into US dollar. So US dollar replaced gold as a reserve currency. So now you don't use gold as a reserve currency, but you use a US dollar as a reserve currency. So therefore, dollar-based gold exchange standard was being determined and not purely gold-based exchange standard. So under the gold standard system, say for example, how much of gold goes into making a coin, or how much of gold reserves a country has, based on that your currency's value was being determined. But now it is not based on how much gold you have that your currency values are being determined, but it is based upon how much of US dollars that a currency has the ability to hold. Based on that, your exchange base is being determined. That was the feature of the Bretton Woods system. Then you have internal and external imbalances which happen where the member countries are permitted to change their exchange values. In case there are any temporary balance of payment deficits which are there, and then IMF will help the countries to recover the temporary balance of exchange differences which can be there in the country. So this is the first one that you have, which is called as your features of the Bretton Woods system. Then you have is my screen visible? I'm having it out there.
Now it is not visible.
Yeah, it's gone. That's what. Since then, it is not visible.
Now it came back.
So since sometime it was not being seen by you all.
No, man, just for a few seconds.
Few seconds. Okay, fine. I was wondering that it is gone. Fine. So you have features of the Bretton Woods system there. This is the first monetary system, the global monetary system, where apart from the gold standards from 1944, the recovery of the Second World War, and then you have the Bretton Woods Conference, which was held. IMF and World Bank were born. IMF was given the power to determine the exchange rate of currencies, and though currencies were allowed to fluctuate 1% here and there, but otherwise IMF would determine, and US dollar replaced gold for determination of currency values, and whatever were the imbalances that were there, which were temporary in nature. To that extent, the currencies were allowed to adjust, and nations of the world were allowed to borrow from IMF, so that the balance of payment deficits can be met by them. This is the first system which was there, that is called as the Bretton Woods system, after recovering from the gold system. So first was the gold standard system, then the Bretton Woods system. Then you have the European monetary system. This was adopted only by the European community. Today we call it as EU. Earlier it was called as EC. So all the nations which are a part of the European community, they all are the members of this particular, because Europe is very big, and then you have got many countries which are a part of Europe. So in the year 1979, they formed this particular system where the European communities, which are there as a part of Europe, they all became members of it. So there were 9 members, and this was launched in 1979. Basically, they wanted monetary stability within Europe. That means the small nations which are there in this European zone, they all should be having similar monetary currency and similar monetary system. So there should not be differences in the money movements which happen within Europe. They wanted to stabilize the monetary system within Europe. So they talked about a European monetary system and European community. Then they spoke about, coordinating whatever are the exchange rate against any other non-European monetary system currency. So within Europe, you have again different types of currencies. Euro came later. Euro was not there since earlier. The monetary unit which is used in Europe is euro. So euro came, sometime back only. Euro was not there at that time. All different countries which are there in Europe, they all followed their own currency, like Frankfurt, and you have Netherlands, and then you have your Paris, you have France. All these people had their own currency respectively. So therefore, each one another, they stabilized the currency system within the Europe. But when they also spoke about, coordinating between the European community members, so that whatever are the non-European currencies, they also can be coordinated and stabilized as well. The value against them also can be coordinated. Later came the European Union, which was there later. So European currency unit and European rate mechanism was operated at that point of time. And then there were these basket of currencies which were being determined, because Europe did not have one currency at that point of time. So you had the basket of currencies which was there, and then you had the European system which was being followed. Euro came into it later. So euro was not there since the beginning when you talk about the monetary system. So let me just, this is also one monetary system which is followed in the world, where you talk about the Bretton Woods, the gold standard, the Bretton Woods, then you say the European the thing system, and then you have the system which is now we call as euro. So euro basically is, now the monetary unit and the currency of the whole European Union. This was established in the year 1999. So 1979 was the European monetary system, where all the member nations of Europe were made to follow a coordinated monetary system. Euro came into existence only in the year 1999 as a non-cash monetary system. Later, from 2002 onwards, they started having euro currency notes and coins also. Until 2002 also, they did not have currency notes and coins. They only established a monetary unit by the name euro. Later, the symbol and the tender currency, we call it as a legal tender money, right? So the legal tender money, which is to be used in daily transactions, euro became legal tender money only from the year 2002. But until then, they had their own different types of currencies that they were using. Even today also, you see, you have franc, which is being used in Paris and France, but otherwise you have some countries like Germany, Italy, Ireland, Denmark, Netherlands, Spain, Portugal, Luxembourg, and Greece, and other countries, UK. These are all countries which are there in Europe. So UK also was a part of Europe. We will discuss a little later why UK split, and then the agreement that came for splitting is called Brexit. You must have heard the word Brexit a lot of time in the news also. So that little later we'll discuss. So when you say euro, it was from 2002 onwards that it has become a legal tender money, but otherwise European Union was following just a European monetary system which was there. So a common unit of currency was being used throughout the European Union from the year 2002 in the form of euro, which is being there. And today you have euro versus dollar, where you have a euro, which is the currency of 22 countries in Europe, and also other Europe also has got their countries not only within the territorial boundaries of Europe, but they also have got their some of the countries which are outside Europe also. There also there are part of European Union only, though they are not within. If you see the world map, you would have the political world map which is there. You would have India, for example. There's one territorial boundary and all the states are within India. If you see Europe, you have territorial boundaries where you have member nations within Europe. Then some of the European countries are not within the territorial boundary of Europe, but they are within the control of Europe. So like that, you have some countries which are outside the territorial boundaries also, but the governance is with Europe only. So, as I said, from 1999, they thought of having your euro, and then from 2002, it became actually the currency in European Union, and many member countries of Europe started adopting it. You had Austria, Belgium, Cyprus, Finland, France, Germany, Greece, Ireland, some countries like Luxembourg, they all adopted. Spain, Portugal, they all adopted as a sole currency in European Union. Some others like Paris, France, they are still to adopt. They have not adopted, European country. Then, as I was telling, Europe has got their territories outside European Union also, which they call as micro states, where the control is with them, but the state is not within their territory, which is there within their borders. It is not there. So you've got these states which are there, which are like Panama, Ecuador, British Virgin Islands. Then you have islands which are Sabah, Saint Perry Islands. All these are all outside. These are called micro states, which are actually following the currency of Europe, but they are not within the territorial boundaries of Europe. So you have these states also where European currency euro is being used. So you have the differences there between euro and Europe, euro and dollar, because both of them are very powerful countries of the world. So basically each one of them coming from a different country. Then, as I said, Brexit. Let us come to Brexit now, where you talk about Britain. When I was telling the list of the countries which are there in European Union, I said UK is also a part of European Union. This was there until the year 2016. From 2016 onwards, Britain took an exit. So that's how the word BR, exit. So BR would stand for Britain, and exit is, it exited from the European Union, which is there. So Britain is no longer a part of European Union. Just give me a second, please. Hello. Right. So you have Brexit term which is being used, which is just an impromptu term which was used for Britain's exit from European Union because they were changing relations between UK and between the member countries of European Union. So from the year 2016, Britain took an exit from the European Union, and they call that entire agreement as a trade treaty. That means what all can Britain do by exiting itself from European Union. So it was a kind of an economic and political, both economic and political treaty it was when Britain took an exit. Because the moment you are in a particular group, you have to follow the norms, rules, regulation, and a single market type of a system of that. So that's how the environment, the consumer rights, the transportation, the all things will be common the moment you are a part of your a particular country's territorial boundaries which are there. For example, in India, then you have the environment being same, the consumer rights, everything will be same. But Britain wanted to have an exit, so 2016 onwards they took an exit, and today Britain is no UK. That means is no longer a part of European Union, but they are into an agreement in the form of Brexit, which is there. Now, Brexit has got two parts to it. One is called as a hard Brexit and one is called as a soft Brexit. Hard Brexit means that United Kingdom is leaving European Union single market, and it will do trade under the regulations which are given by the World Trade Organization. So whatever WTO tells, the trade which will be done by UK will be as a part of the norms which are given by WTO and not as a part of the norms which are given by the European Union. That is called as the hard Brexit, where you talk about UK following all the guidelines, tariff, non-tariff barriers, and everything which is given by WTO. Soft Brexit is one where you talk about, option of staying in the single market. Like this country like Norway, they have exercised this option and they said that they will stay in the single market country only of European Economic Area. So they are now, as a member in the European Union, Norway is now having a free trade agreement with the remaining members. That means there are no barriers, there are no tariffs between Norway and the other members in the European Union. This is called as, soft terms which are there. Now, basically, exit of UK with the EU had got a lot of implications even for the world, not only for both of them, but there are a lot of implications for the world because the time, the scaling, the scope of business, everything changed. Then movement of workers, skilled and unskilled between the countries also changed. There were a lot of impact even on, the educational institutions, the universities which were there, because enrollment of students and faculty teaching and all that also had a lot of impact on that. Manufacturing businesses, because supply chains of these manufacturing businesses were in EU. So UK's manufacturing businesses also had to modify their supply chains where they were actually dependent on EU. Now they had to modify the supply chains which were there. Most of the funding also which came for doing research and tech and development, that also was coming from EU. So that had to get replaced. So UK government worked very hard in order to replace that also. So there were some issues which were there post Brexit. So till now also, stabilization is happening in UK with respect to their exit from European Union. So you see, you have these monetary systems which are there. The global monetary system, if you see, you have gold standard, European monetary system, Eurozone, and then Brexit, and then the International Monetary Fund, which was taking care of the Bretton Woods system. These are the what do you call, the international monetary systems which are followed. So first part of the discussion, we spoke about forms of foreign investment. Second part of the discussion, we have spoken about this monetary systems which are there. Now we shall move towards FEMA, where it is nothing but an act. Let me share the screen with you on FEMA. No, FEMA basically talks about, in India, how do you go about controlling foreign exchange? So during British Raj, what had happened, currency flows and outflows were coming when, the the monarch, the majesty was taking care of that particular movement. But after India attained independence, it was very essential that you have act which actually take care of these movements, because there were a lot of imports which were happening and money which was flowing, and there was no proper restriction which was there. So it was thought that there should be an act which talks about this movement of money which has to take place. So FERA came into picture in the year 1974. So that the foreign currency movements which can be there, that gets regulated. So you had the FERA Act coming into picture here. So 1973 it was introduced, but it came into implementation from the year 1974. This is the earlier act. Now we don't have FERA. FERA is replaced with FEMA as such. Basically, the full form of FERA says Foreign Exchange Regulation Act, because you are talking about regulating and controlling use of foreign exchange. So whatever foreign exchange would come into India, you were talking about using it properly and regulating its use. But the moment there was any kind of a violation of the law under FERA, any slightest clauses which were mentioned in FERA, if they were violated, the punishment which was given to the violator was very criminal in nature, and it was like a draconian law. So the government felt that this should be replaced by something which is much more clearer and much more softer in terms of inviting foreign investment. So there, because otherwise foreign companies will be afraid to invest in case they make they abide by such strict laws which are there, they would hesitate to come. So they wanted to make modifications in the law which would make the law a little slightly not so criminal in nature, that they would punish the offenders with so much of intensity, but they would make the law much more clearer. So they came up with FEMA Act, which was there. So here in FEMA, so FERA was gone, and in 1999, more of a liberalization and more of improvement in foreign exchange had to happen. So they came up with the Foreign Exchange Management Act. So from the year, and this FDI was opened to many sectors also, and FEMA, when it was passed in 1999, it became effective from 2000 onwards. So the basic intention was getting a act which is related to FEMA, where you don't call it as foreign exchange regulation, but you call it as foreign exchange management, because management was a softer term when compared to regulation. So they used the word Foreign Exchange Management Act. This particular act was merging all the earlier acts which were related to foreign exchange, so that foreign trade payments are easily made in India and foreign currency also flows easily in India. So you have the rollout as to how these two are different. So there are some sections which got deleted, and some sections which were talking about criminal penalties which were there, they were converted with the civil penalty. And some of the terms and conditions also changed, where you the whoever is the complainant, they were allowed to get some kind of a legal help. And some terms which were called as authorized and residents and all, they were redefined under the FEMA Act, which was not there done being earlier. What does this act actually talk about? So let us come to that. So FEMA basically speaks about, how do you facilitate external trade and external payments? So when a foreign trade of a country has to be boosted, you have to talk about an act where the act actually is facilitating movement of money into the country very easily. So there you talk about, an act which facilitates external trade and payment. Now, foreign exchange, when it comes to the country, they have to be a smooth management also of that foreign exchange and orderly maintenance of the foreign exchange into the country. So therefore, this particular FEMA Act spoke about orderly maintenance of foreign exchange market in India, regulation of foreign currency in India, so that imbalances which are there in balance of payment record also can be maintained well. And all kinds of agreements which are coming on account of employment and investments which are being done by non-residents, those investments also were getting NRIs, investments by NRIs also would get regulated under this FEMA Act. And the act was much more easier to understand, transparent, the terms were redefined and all. And wherever government permission is not necessary, those areas were deleted, and it was made much more simple to understand as to how foreign exchange could come to India. Then you have how does it actually work? The FEMA Act. You have no the division of the foreign exchange management, which takes place between different ministries also. You have, the Bear Act, which has got 49 sections to it. That is the highest body which is there, which is called as a supreme legislation, which was being made. Then you have what does FEMA actually comprise of? What are the ministries which takes care of it? What are the RBI guidelines which are related to it? The circulars which are released by RBI in relation to FEMA. What are the policy measures which are given by DIPP, that is your Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion. Those are also there. Then Enforcement Directorate, because you have ED, which conducts a lot of raids on, foreign money laundering and all. So they are also a part of your Foreign Exchange Management Act. So the structure goes like that, where you have many regulators who are involved. You have the government in the form of ministries, you have RBI, you have DIPP, you have Enforcement Directorate. Those are all the people who are involved in the structure. Now, if you see how does it actually work, FEMA, you have got FEMA where provisions for foreign exchange are being made, and all current account transactions which are there are all made free. See, in the sense, in case you are doing visible trade, current account means visible trade, merchandise. So the moment you are buying and selling merchandise, whichever is a permitted merchandise, you don't again have to regulate that. For example, if I am buying and selling, except for essential commodities, say for example, if I am buying strawberries and then I'm importing strawberries, now strawberries are visible trade. So therefore, when the import of strawberries happen, that is a current account transaction, and that need not be regulated to a great extent. So therefore, that becomes a current account transaction, which is free under FEMA. Where there's no need to have a control, full control and all. You can have simple restrictions or a reasonable restrictions, and you can proceed with that transaction, foreign transaction. So export and import of current account transaction. So visible trade, reasonable restrictions are there on visible trade. But when you talk about capital account transactions, where you say invisible trade and services, investments which are happening, movement of professionals which happen, then you have specific guidelines which are given by the RBI. So under FEMA Act, they have to follow those guidelines which are being given. And FEMA has asked RBI, under FEMA, RBI is entitled to have control over management of the foreign exchange. When the money comes, RBI cannot directly handle foreign exchange transaction. So RBI will identify people whom they call as authorized persons, authorized foreign exchange dealers, authorized foreign exchange agents, authorized foreign exchange brokers who follow the guidelines given by RBI. They are registered with the RBI, and then they have a right to deal in the foreign currency. So RBI doesn't do it on its own, but it does it through authorized persons who are brokers, dealers, agents in foreign exchange, and through them the FEMA Act is being managed. That is also one thing. Then RBI, the FEMA Act also contains all kinds of legal frameworks which are actually made by the central government and by the RBI, and they get changed from time to time depending upon the environment which is around. So you have the overall scheme. And how does FEMA work? So you have a mechanism of working there. You have Act, which is FEMA. If you see there, you have the Act there, FEMA in blue box, which is passed by the Parliament in the legislature. Then you have got notifications related to FEMA, all kinds of circulars, definitions, meanings, limits which are imposed, who can invest, who cannot invest, where they can invest, where they cannot invest, how much they should invest, what are the rules that they should follow. These are all called as notifications. So these are all notifications come under the official gazette. So when the government releases official gazette, so you have the legislature there, and then you have the executive. So these official gazettes will come through the executive. So that body releases all the notifications, all rules, regulations related to current account, rules, regulations related to capital account. So you have the account of the government also, government buying and selling also, that also will be monitored under this. And all kinds of foreign exchange transactions, all forex transactions are all regulated by the RBI through their authorized persons who are there, who are dealing in foreign exchange. So you have got the mechanism of FEMA, which works in this particular way. Then coming to the scheme back, you have the ministries which are involved here. You have foreign affairs, you have industry, then you have DIPP, which is a part of the ministry, and then you have Ministry of Finance, then you have RBI, SEBI, which are all a part of this particular mechanism. So industrial policy which is being announced by the Ministry of Industry, they will contain all the provisions, which is nothing but Ministry of Corporate Affairs. So they will also contain all the provisions which are related to how money should come and how it should go and all, and royalty payments or joint ventures, technical collaborations which will happen. All those things they will talk about. Then any borrowings which the government also has got, that also will be a part of FEMA only, where you will talk about any borrowings the government departments make, or foreign investment the government departments get, that also gets regulated here. Then investments made through shares, bonds, debentures, because these all happen in the stock market. So therefore SEBI also is a part of this particular thing. So in international business, when you say foreign exchange coming to India, you have a FEMA Act which regulates this particular foreign exchange just coming to India. Right. This is about your foreign investment and monetary systems across the globe, and your FEMA Act of 1999. Then next we proceed towards what is your trims under your this one, WTO. So we discussed what is WTO. Today we'll talk about also, we still have time in this session, so we'll talk one part of it in this session and the remaining part in the next session which goes. So now we will take up a thing which is related to bilateral and multilateral trade agreements which are there. Now bilateral trade agreements are, as the word says, bi, you have agreement between two countries. The moment you say multilateral, the agreement will be between many countries of the world. So you have the bilateral and the multilateral trade agreements which are there. Actually, the bilateral trade agreements are very limited. For example, you have trade agreements only happening between Atlantic and transatlantic nations. So you call it as the investment and the trade pact which are signed between them. So for example, US and European Union, you have only between USA and only between European Union, you have a bilateral trade agreement which is called as TTIP, which is nothing but Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership. That means between only two nations, between USA and between EU. Such things you call as your bilateral, which is only between two countries, like TTIP, Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership. Same way like that, you also have agreements like NAFTA, where North American Free Trade Agreement, we call it. So that also is an agreement which is basically actually not bi, but it is a trilateral agreement between US, Canada, Mexico, because they share their territorial boundaries and North American part of it. So you call it as NAFTA. That is also an agreement. Apart from that, all other agreements which are there, which are multilateral agreements, these are nothing but TRIPS, TRIMS, and GATT. These three are a part of your WTO agreements which are there. So trade-related intellectual property, trade-related investment measures, and general agreement on trade and services. These three are a part of your multilateral agreements where all the member nations of WTO are being bound by these agreements which are there. But for these three to understand, we have to first understand what is intellectual property. Intellectual property is basically a term which is being referred to any asset which is created through the use of creativity or mind skills of a person. So it can be music, it can be literature, it can be art, it can be invention, it can be science, symbol, images, designs, geographical things which can be used, or trademark, copyright, patents, anything which is being developed which is intangible in nature, and which doesn't have a physical form as such, but designs later can come into a physical form. Even literary works like books and all can have a physical form, है तो नको, which can come into a physical form also. Later it can be there. So these inventions which are being made by utilizing creativity and mind skills of a person, they are called as the intellectual property. So intellectual property refers to creation of assets through the use of mind. So as I was mentioning, music, literary art, artistic works, inventions, symbol, names, images, designs, trademarks, copyrights, patents, movies, music, books, software, photographs, anything that you're producing where your artistic skills are being used, mind skills are being used, you call them as intellectual property. This is the first category which is there in the intellectual property. Second category which is there in the intellectual property is called as your industrial property. Industrial intellectual property are basically created only for the purpose of industrial use. For example, you can have some invention which is being done and somebody gets it patented in their name, and that patent holder have to give you right to use that invention. So you have to take a license from the patent holder or the inventor for a particular period of time to use the, it could be a design, it could be anything which the person has invented, it could be a trade secret, anything which the person has got with them and they got it patented, models, designs and all, and then you take permission to use that model or a design. So that way you call it as industrial properties which are there. So intellectual property, specific rights which the person has got. Now, intellectual properties are very essential in international business because you have most of the countries in the world who do a lot of trade, lot of business with the use of intellectual property. So you can divide intellectual property into four broad categories which are there. First is called as patents for invention. Second is copyrights. Third is trademarks. And fourth is trade secrets, which can be there. The first one, patents for invention. Patent is basically an exclusive right which is given to a person or a state in which the person stays, or the country in which the person stays, for a limited period of time, so that, you know, because the person has invented that, before that invention is actually made public and easily accessible by in public domain, that should remain with the person for some duration of time, because that is being invented. So it could be a product, it could be a process, it could be a design which the person has invented, a model which is being invented. So therefore, that person who is residing in that territory, it can be any country, they will get a patent over whatever inventions they have done. Now, patents are basically granted under national laws of a particular country. So whatever are the national laws, and usually the time period which is given for patents is up to a period of 20 years. So for a period of 20 years, the right remains with the inventor. Once the period of 20 years is complete, then the right is not withheld with the inventor, but the invention becomes easily accessible in the public domain. So the patented item will now be free for people to make use of it. It will not be remaining with the owner of the patent right as such. So it'll become in public use. Now, patent, any invention, when do you say that it can get patent? Only if it has three things. One, it is very novel, that is, it is new, it was not there earlier, so it is completely new. Second, uh, it is invented. That means it should not have been obviously existing earlier. It should have come into existence later. So something which was in existence earlier, and if you found it, it is discovery and not an invention. So therefore, it should have been invented actually by you. So inventiveness should be there. and you can get it patented only if it is useful. If somebody invents something which is useless, then nobody will give a patent towards it. International Patents Office will not give a patent if somebody has invented something which is of no use. So they would give patents only if something is of use to the society at large. So then usefulness also will come into picture. So it should be new, say they are all governed under the Patents Act, which was passed in 1970. So Patent Acts of 1970 takes care of all the things which can get patented. You can have patents which can be there for machines. You have designed a model of a machine, so you can get it patented. You have designed a method in a medicine field, that can also be patented. Where particular seeing why people US claimed that they found medicinal properties of turmeric, though turmeric was very ancient to India, and Indians have been using turmeric as a medicinal plant since ages. But none of the Indians thought about getting it patented. And USA, when they started doing a lot of pharma research, they discovered that turmeric has got a lot of medicinal properties. About the medicinal properties of turmeric, so they got 20 as of now the patent is with them. So any medicinal use that anybody would want to make of turmeric, USA and only then use it, because they have got patent for it. Which are claiming that a substance can be used for this purpose. That is also called as an patent only. That is also an invention which is being there. Which are there. You have got designs of machines which can be patented. You have, in case you are discovering or finding out nutritional value of any food or beverage, you can get that patented. In case you are talking about, novelty which you have discovered under any existing theory, for example, that actually will not qualify for getting a patent as such. So you cannot say that in that theory I found this, so I'll give patents. So that way some things cannot be given as patents. Basically in India, if you see patents, you have three types. You have utility patents, design patents, and plant patents. Utility patents, as the very word says, useful and which is new. So the word utility, it means it should be of use. So for 20 years, it will remain in you. Then you have patents which are for design, where a person who have designed something, the appearance of a model or a machine, or say, for example, I have designed an ornamental design, and then you can file under design patent approval. And then if the design is unique, novel, it was not there earlier. For example, designs of buildings. Architects can get their buildings patented, their design of the building patented, and will remain with them for that period of time. Utility patents are basically for 20 years, but design patents are for 14 years. So whichever design you are creating, that will remain with you for 14 years. Then you have got patents which are related to plant. This is if you have discovered a new use of a plant, or if you have discovered a new variety of a plant, then that patent will remain with you. Basically, I know people who are into pure sciences, botanist and all, they do this kind of a research in order to discover new forms of plants, new uses of plants. They do laboratory research to test all that, and then they have the patents which are being discovered. So this is the first part of IPR, which is patents. Then you have copyright. Copyright basically is an exclusive right which is safeguarding reproduction of an original work. So it can be literary work, it can be music, it can be film, it can be recording, it can be software, it can be any multimedia which can be there. So the person who created that particular material, they should be the holders of the copyright which will be there. So copyright is basically a right against not copying or not reproducing the original material which has been there. So you have copyrights which are being given basically to prevent somebody from copying your works or any other thing in your name, renting or lending it in the market also, or it can also include, things which are related to films and broadcast, drama, music, art, a computer program, a database, a model, a code which you have developed. You have trademarks. Trademark, like, we see M for McDonald's, and that is a trademark for trademark for them. So that also is being registered with the company, so that the goods and services are coming from this territory and this territory. So these are called as trademarks. The word trade and a mark, it is nothing but an identification so that buyers can easily identify the product and separate the product from the product of the other sellers and buy it in the market. So you use the word trademark there. Trademarks again, you can have generic trademarks and suggestive trademarks. Generic trademarks are basically signs, symbols, logos, and all which are describing the product. Whereas suggestive trademarks are the ones where they don't describe the product as such. They are describing fourth one. First was what? Patent, and then we had copyright, and then came trademark. The fourth IPR that you have is called as your trade secret. Trade secret is any information which you keep in secret so that the competitors cannot overrule you and your business can keep running. So you have protection for the trade secrets also. Like, for example, if you have Coca-Cola, and if you see the case study of Coca-Cola, whoever are the president, CEOs of the company, they will not be allowed to travel together in a flight, because if one of them, if the something happens to the plane, it crashes or something, both will die. So who will have the trade secret? So they won't allow their CEOs to travel together. They have to travel in different flights, and the trade secret is only with them. So you have trade secret, that is nothing but the formula which is there, so that the progress of the company cannot be stopped. And then whoever are the engineers and inventors and designers and all, they will maintain the trade secret with them. So they don't disclose it to any other person, but they keep it with them only so that it cannot be illegally used. These are also part of your intellectual property rights, so that you can prevent others from copying it, you can prevent others from making misuse of it for earning money, you can prevent others from getting any funding in the name of somebody else's copyrights and all. You can prevent others from generating income by the use of these copyrights and all. So these are intellectual properties which are there. In the next session, which we shall have in the afternoon, we will talk about the agreements which are related to the intellectual property, that is trims, agreements which are related to trips and trims, and then the GATT. The three things we will cover, followed by your last lessons, which are to do with contemporary developments. So what are the contemporary developments which are happening, and uh, current issues which are there in foreign business? And you have Exim Bank and these institutions which are there in India, which take care of the export or trade which is happening. These in the afternoon session.